I think what you said earlier is correct. It seems that most guys that I run into who are making digital films are just auditioning to get to Hollywood, to make that stuff. It's kind of weird. Why? I mean, you have the opportunity with this gear to do whatever you want. What are you waiting for? You know? So maybe it's up to you. You do it. I mean, what do you got to lose?
What's going on? I sign my initials on you. I call you man on street, outside warehouse. As soon as you dry off, report to the Washington Square Gallery. When you get there, ask for Art. Tell him Pop sent you.
To be basic about it, I knew then, the minute I started fooling around with this stuff, that it was better than working a job. And so therefore it was more interesting than anything else around. So I just started doing it. We basically were just having fun. We weren't trying to make any statements or anything. I mean, a lot of people voted for Jack Kennedy because, you know, back then, because we all said, boy, he has a good-looking wife, let's vote for him. There was no other reason. We couldn't tell the difference. We were all too drunk. So anyway, when this film stuff started, we just started having fun. And I was kind of a quasi-writer, so I was written some plays and a couple of books. So we were just having fun, and suddenly there was this underground movement. And a guy on the Village Voice named Jonas Mekas, who you probably know who that is, Mike. He wrote about one of my films, and suddenly people were saying, my God, what are you going to do next? I didn't even know what I did then. Now I got to think of something else. Some people who come up to me and say, are you the guy that made Putney Swope? I'll say, yeah. I said, well, you really changed my life. And my answer is, I'm sorry. You know, you might have been better off without it. Because of Chafed Elbows, I was hired by a place that did commercials for ad agencies to become the experimental filmmaker at this place that made commercials. It made no sense. So I took the job. It was money and it was great, and we would make these experimental commercials, and the boss would say, that's great. Let's show it to an ad agency and maybe get them to try something, experiment. So I was there a year, and Chafed Elbows was running during that time. And so he brought in a guy named Vodka. Do you know who that is? Maybe you can Google him and find out. He did all the montages in Hollywood. He was from Russia. When you see calendars flipping in the film when the fighter's on the road and it shows this, or a couple meeting and then leading up to getting married and a montage. He did all that stuff. And so he was hired at this company. And none of the directors of commercials would go to his lectures, but I did and a couple of other guys did, because we were fascinated by this guy. He was about 75 years old. He had a girlfriend about 35, a Chinese girl. He was an interesting character. So one day, he said, I'm going to show you a film that I made years ago and show you how bad it is and show you what I learned from it, and that was great, and this and that and that and this. So suddenly, it was during one of his lectures, a couple of commercial directors showed up because of my enthusiasm, and now they were listening to him and this and that. And then after the meeting, the lecture, it was a black guy. He said, Downey, you and I are doing basically the same thing, and yet you make more money than I do. And I said, well, let's go see Bob, it was the boss, and bring this up. So he comes with me, and we go in there, and I say to Bob Bergman, I said, you know, I forgot his name, Tony. Tony and I do the same job, and yet you're paying me more money. And he said, if I give him a raise, I've got to give you a raise. And then we're right back where we started. And I thought, there is the reason to make a movie about advertising and black and white and this and that. And he did get his raise. He did get a raise. But that's as far as it went. Nobody else did.
I have a malignancy in my prostate, but when you're in my arms, it's quicker time!
Get on out! Yeah, no more taking pictures of those jive cans and jive bottles and skinny leg broads with stockings on them. Get on out of here! We're gonna have some greasy fingers and some chicken and all the beautiful things that people have who have it and you ain't got it. So get on out, you understand? We're not gonna take any more of your jive. We're truth and soul, you understand? Truth and soul. Because we got it and we got a brother that's gonna make it right.
He was in a play on Broadway called The Great White Hope about Jack Johnson. And he played an old guy even though he was a teenager with a cane and everything. So I tracked him down and after the play he would show up at night when we were shooting and say, what do you want me to do? And I'd say, you got to go after him. You know? And he would invent, I'd give him a couple of lines and then he would just take off and say, is that good? Yeah, and then he'd leave.
Brother, you were voted in here on a jive Hummer. Now how, when are things gonna happen, man? Your whole cart has been peeped. When are things gonna start to change? Where is the revolution you are talking about? There ain't nothing happening. There is no revolution the way you're running this joint, man. Now when is something gonna happen? When are you gonna do it? When and how? What day? Give me a time, man. Show me how progress is gonna be made. There ain't no progress the way this is running now.
This is Sonny Williams.
What do you got to say for yourself, Sonny?
Anyway, nobody wanted that film. It was done, and I said, what do you mean nobody wants it? All my other films have been shown on Bleecker Street, and they get around a little booking here and there around the country and the college. Why nobody wants this one? This one seems a little better than the other ones. So finally the guy who put up the money said there's one more distributor left, and we're going to screen it for him whenever it was. So we had this screening. And afterwards he comes up to me and he says, I don't get it, but I like it. And I said, oh, great. I couldn't believe it. My heart was pounding. And he said, you know, I own all the theaters. He did. He owned Cinema 1, 2, the Plaza, the Paris, the Beekman, the Sutton, the Fifth Avenue, all these theaters in New York. And he said, I can open this thing in 2 or 3 weeks, and we can go from there. And I said, oh, this is unbelievable. So I'm sitting in his office one day, and he's saying, what theater do you want? You want Cinema 1 or Cinema 2? And I said, well, I don't know. Anything. He said, Cinema 2 would be right. And he brings an ad out from another room. A guy comes in with this ad, and it was this, and it said, Up Madison Avenue, Putney Swope. And it was his fist with a finger in the air. And I said, that ad is better than the movie. He said, don't ever say that again. You're going to fuck everything up. And so I didn't say anything. And then that ad was censored and everything. And then they put a girl on instead of the finger on the fist. And what made that film successful was Jane Fonda was on the Johnny Carson show talking about Easy Rider, her brother's film. And then she said, but there's another film that's in New York that you should see, and she mentioned Putney Swope, and the next day there were lines around the corner.
It started last weekend at the L. Howard game. Girl, I saw your beaver flash. I'll never be the same. Oh no.
You gave me a soul kiss. Boy, it sure was grand. You gave me a dry hump behind the hot dog stand. Oh, yeah.
To see how people 40 years later, I think the film doesn't hold up. You know, to me, it's like, okay, you know, but I'm pleased that people, and especially young people, tell me their parents made them watch it as little kids. They made them see it with a tape or take them to a theater. And it's the only film of mine that ever really got distribution. You know, the rest, you know, a week, 2 weeks, no distributor. I got offered a couple of Hollywood films that I just thought were horrible. And then I ended up doing a few of them in the 90s, and they're horrible. There's only one that's okay.
Oh, that magazine.
Oh, that is one of the worst fucking things in history. I wanted to use 10-year-olds, and they said, no, that's not real. I said, wait, I've been to a military school researching this. They're 10-year-old kids in military school. He said, no, that's not real. Then I went to another one to scout a location, and some kid had burned down the mess hall, you know. And I called and I said, we've got to have that in the script. And the guy said, you're crazy. That's not real. So I knew I was doomed. And we had these 16-year-old kids. It was horrible.
No artistic control on that.
Nothing. No, I did what I was told and made money, and that's the pain of it all, you know. You find out when you do stuff you don't want to do, and even though you're making money, it's going to turn to mush, you know, because there's somebody saying to you, do it that way or you're fired.